This E3 special report is sponsored by iRacing.com.
Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Jessica Lopez, and this is your E3 special report on Formula One 2011 by Codemasters. The show was last week, and lead developers Paul Gill and Stephen Hood came on over to the studio while they were in town, talked some sim racing, had some pizza and some beers. As a matter of fact, Sean sat with the both of them and talked to them about what else? Formula One 2011. Here he is.
Well, for those of you who are fans of the show, you might recognize the two characters on my left here. I've got Stephen Hood and Paul Gill of Codemasters. Before we get started, why don't you just remind people your titles over there at Codemasters?
I'm Paul Gill, the Senior Producer.
And I'm Stephen Hood, Chief Game Designer.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you guys on the success of F1 2010. I mean, it was a great game. It was your guys' first effort, and it was pretty well received by the world, was it?
Yeah, I think the sales figures were good. The review scores were obviously good. We won BAFTA for Best Sports Game, so I think that was way beyond even our wildest dreams when we initially set out with it.
Okay, and we interviewed you a couple of times before the release of the game last year. How did you feel? I mean, I know there are a few obstacles you couldn't implement into the game. How do you guys feel about the product itself?
Well, for the 10 title, I think we're extremely pleased on it. It was a really ambitious title for us. It was a case of putting the things that we really wanted to see in a sports simulation Formula One game. We love the series, we love Formula One in general, but it was kind of putting our heart and soul into it. But it was our first title, so we missed out on some areas that we wanted to put into 11, and that's what we've been working on over the past few months.
I understand that. I mean, even with our show, we finish a show and there's always something you'd want to do. Yeah. I'm sure you guys came away with a lot of things you wanted to add to the game. What are some of the big changes we're going to see between 2010 and 2011?
It's really two main areas of focus for F1 2011. It's really polishing up all the areas where we implemented in 2010, and there's also a massive focus on multiplayer. So last year we had the tagline, "Be the driver, live the life." This year we've added to that, so it's "Be the driver, live the life, and go compete." And the go compete section is all about multiplayer, some new modes there, and also time attack and challenges with your friends.
Okay. You mentioned living the life, so living the life is still a big part of the new version of the game?
Yeah, we've changed and added some extra things there. So there's a lot more of a cinematic feel to F1 2011. There's a lot more moments in the game where you really get that sort of emotion and real connection with your team. Seems like Parc Fermé, which you guys are going to see something of over the show tomorrow. So yeah, we're really quite excited about some of the live the life areas.
So the whole interview process, my question and answers, those are still a big part of the game?
It is, it definitely is. I mean, we've still got the same plan for that. It's about replicating the things that you've seen on TV, doing the interviews with the press. If you're a star, it's not about seeing it just in the stat screens, it's about seeing it in the paddock as well and being asked those interview questions. And we've got the long-term plan for that as well, and it's about breaking up the racing or breaking up the sessions. So we're still pushing that, but this year it's about that feedback we get as well. So last year sometimes you would answer questions like, did you want to drive for Ferrari, or are you moving to McLaren in the future? And you weren't too sure how the game was taking that. This year you get a lot more feedback, so you get these newspaper clippings between the sessions, between the races. So you might answer specific ways to the media, and then you see it in the headlines and you think, I didn't say that, that's not the impression I wanted to give, and you might change it in the future. So it's still the same kind of complicated thing under the hood, but now the player can better understand that, and I think that will help massively this year.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's talk more about the driving aspects of the game. You had a pretty good physics engine. How much have you changed that? Has it evolved? Is it the same physics engine? Where are we at there?
No, it's moved on quite a lot, to be honest. It's been a big focus. First and foremost, we're always, it's a racing game at heart, so we always want to move the physics forward. The suspension's had a massive update, and that's had quite a dramatic effect on the overall car handling model. You can feel the weight transfer a lot more now. You can ride the curbs more. You can feel more play in the tyres. You can oversteer the car and control it. And just with the new rules for this season with DRS and KERS and the new Pirelli tyres, there's the whole new sort of racecraft strategy elements, which is just bringing so much more to the racing.
Okay, yeah, you just mentioned KERS and DRS. So how does that, I mean, is it identical to what you do in a real Formula One car? How do you do it as a driver?
Absolutely the same. So in practice and qualifying, you can use DRS for the rear wing whenever you want. And that actually really complicates the steering as well, the control of a car, because you think it's going to be really easy, especially for gamers, because we can manage all these button controls. But what you'll find is, because it just gives you a finite amount of time during a lap, that it's actually easier for you to get used to driving the car with the new physics before you start playing with curves, before you start DRS. And that's a really good tip, by the way, not to just dive in and start pressing all these buttons thinking it's going to make you go quicker, because it isn't.
Right.
You need to use it at appropriate time. And it is really good tactically as well. So when you're playing those kind of multiplayer races and you think the guy behind me is going to be able to use DRS and down this straight in a race, you tend to save a lot of your curves to kind of power away from him coming out of the corner onto the DRS straight. And there's a lot of tactical play going on now. That's really quite cool. So people have got different stories for the races.
That's very good, and it's again getting back to that whole living life of a Formula One driver. You watched, I mean, last year was the craziest year in Formula One ever, and a lot of it was some of that stuff and the things the drivers were doing. So, what changes went on with Formula One between the 2 years, and how does the game go along with the changes in Formula One?
We obviously aim to mirror the sport exactly. So the big things are, I mean, the tyres are having the biggest change on racing this year, the sort of pit stop strategy. So we've got a whole new area of OSD that comes on, and using the fuel mixture and stuff this year really has a difference. So, you know, just saving the tyres for their best zone and dialing your engine mixture right up and really going for those golden laps. And maybe you want 2 really aggressive stints, and that's really sort of going out for those all-out qualifying laps. Whereas there's also sort of the prime angle, you know, sort of just trying to peg the gap to the guy in front. You know he's on the better tyres, but as long as you can keep the gap consistent and you're not going to get more than a pit stop away, you know that you've got him contained, and that really adds so much more dimension to the gameplay. In addition to that, there's obviously the 2 tracks as well. So India's new for this year, and we've got Nürburgring as well. So.
Oh wow! So good additions in the track department
Absolutely.
as well. Now, when it comes to that whole strategy, how much of this is gaming strategy versus how much of this is real driving strategy? I mean, when you're changing these tires and making these choices, are you going to notice it as the driver, or does it just play out in lap times?
I think you do notice it as the driver, definitely. I mean, we were discussing earlier about we've put a lot more time into the tyres this year. Because we've got that base of 10 to build on, very early on we've been playing the multiplayer games in the office, just tweaking those tyres, watching the races and going, it's quite obvious that the guys starting on the prime tyres are at a disadvantage at the start. They have to get those up to temperature, or maybe they've started on the scrub tyres. All these kind of nuances that we've put into the game make a big difference. And we were talking about some of the races. We've done some 45-minute races recently. Some players that are very equal in ability, but we've been doing different strategies. Some of the guys have been going option, prime for a real aggressive start to the race. And I tend to see myself, I like to see myself more as a Prost or a Button that's easy on the car to start with. And they might be trying to speed away, but I'm staying with them. I've got a high fuel mix, but I haven't quite got the tyre grip. And I know at the end of the race we'll be coming back together again. And some of the 45-minute races have been separated by 2 or 3 drivers by 3 seconds when you're crossing the line. So it all comes together at the end, and that's when you know it's starting to work this year. That's what Formula One's all about.
Right. And what about, I mean, obviously you're going to need that strategy mentality going to different tracks. I mean, certain tracks I would think would require one strategy, and another track might suit a different strategy.
Absolutely. Part of the OSD and the UI elements, we're there, and we feed detail on the sort of demands on the car itself. We've got mechanical failures this year as well, so the demands on the car itself and the demands on the tyre. And the race engineers there as well, we've revamped them quite a lot this year, so we feed you a lot more intel about what sort of lap time you should be setting and what sort of strategy you should be adopting, and that's sort of tied into your practice as well. So there's a lot more play there, and also as the strategy could change, you know, as early as the first lap you knock off your nose cone, or maybe you're stuck behind a slower car and you really can't get past him. So you've got a few tools at your disposal with curves, DRS and the fuel mixture. But if that doesn't work, then perhaps you can drop into the pits and change your strategy again. So it's really quite a lot of thinking time as well as executing the race as well.
Excellent. That's racing, especially Formula One. You
Absolutely.
watch it and guys are changing during the race. Let's talk about something a little less favorable. Formula One 2010 had a little bit of steering put lag, or a lot of people kind of complained about that. Is that something that you guys noticed? Is it something that was addressed for the 2011 version of the game?
I think the steering controls in general have been addressed on the consoles and certainly on PC as well. And there's been a big breakthrough recently with the way that we've been looking at the steering code. We've got a very good, very intelligent program in the office who's my current staff for looking at that. He's been doing a really good job. And I think it's very easy for us to sit here and say we've done X, Y and Z. But you'll be able to start try these things out very quickly as well and just see for yourself. I think it's improved massively, and we've noticed that on the kind of wheels that we've been playing the game with. Last year there was a small subset that it felt very good on. Now we're kind of playing with a lot more of the premium wheels as well as some of the cheaper ones that we can all get our hands on. And it's amazing that it does work well across all of those wheels. Whereas last year there was a specific group that we were happy with the game on. Now I think the suspension changes, the time on physics in general, it just works so much better. I'm looking forward. We did a community day recently, and a lot of people that are playing it you consider to be the real hardcore, the ones that will give you complete honesty.
Right.
And there's that slight trepidation as to what they're going to say about it. They've jumped on it, done a few laps, and they come back and go, "Wow, the handling's changed. It feels so much better driving the car through the corners now." That's what you want to hear.
Right.
You know, that's justifying what we've been trying to do. So that will definitely pay for it.
Do you have any professional drivers testing the game out at this point?
Yeah, we've got Anthony Davison again, and you know, his input this year has been just a lot easier to execute on. Last year, a lot of the changes, you know, you sort of saying this is slightly wrong with the handling, and we'd have to go away for a few weeks, maybe even a month, and rewrite a bit of the physics. This time, it's more about the data changes to the numbers. You know, we've really been working closely with him. He's obviously the Mercedes test driver as well, so he knows the sort of lap times and speeds we should be doing around corners. And even before the season was started, you know, we were pretty close on the ballpark. And I think when the first race was taken, we were less than a second away from the lap time at the end. So just a few little tweaks and fine tuning. So it's worked really well. Gary Paffett's been helping out as well, the McLaren test driver. So we get a lot of feedback from the actual guys who drive the cars, because obviously they know better than us.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm dying to know this. Do you know what his force feedback settings are? I mean, how strong a wheel is he using on that?
He's generally going for the same settings, the default settings that we've got in the game now. And he's all about that consistency and lap, which is what he's always trying to attain, not so much with the wheel settings, but with the car handling, because that is what Formula 1 is all about. It's just that kind of fractions of a second, which is really difficult for game developers, but I think we've got it down to a T now. And we'd notice if he suddenly, as soon as he got into the game, started changing the wheel settings, but he doesn't. There's been a big change on it recently on the PC, but I think we've got the numbers right.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay, you mentioned multiplayer, focusing a lot more on multiplayer. What kind of new things are we looking at? What kind of differences? What's going to make it better?
So straight away, is more cars online. It's full grids now, so no longer just 12 cars online. It's the full 24. That's 16 human players and 8 AI cars. There's also split screen, so you can now play with a friend in the same room, as opposed to having to go back to your own house to play them online. And co-op championship, that's the key mode. I think when you've either got someone who's very similar ability to you, you know, you're competing for the performance upgrades, and you just never want to leave a session being second. You know, you're looking across to the garage to the left or to the right, and you know it's your friend there. So it's all about the competition element, and there's quite a bit of competition in the studio for that.
It starts out quite friendly at the beginning of the season as well, because for the first time in co-op challenge, it means that you're basically both fighting to get the constructors for the team. You're both driving for Ferrari, you're both driving for McLaren or whomever. So you're helping one another out. It's what kind of settings have you got? What lap times are you getting? You can check all this data out. But then you know that only one of you can get that driver's title towards the end of the year, and then maybe you become a bit more reserved, and it's, well, I'm not telling you, find out for yourself. You get that competition level in there, just like true Formula 1.
Sure,
I think that's
sure, absolutely. I want to go back to wheels. Sounds like there's been a nice improvement on the wheels. What about Gamepad? I mean, is the game going to be playable to the Gamepad? Could I, with a Gamepad, actually be competitive against somebody with a steering wheel?
Yeah, I mean, that's the key area of focus for us. I mean, I think because this is a sequel and we're not rewriting loads of stuff, we've just been able to just get our hands in and start fine-tuning that stuff much earlier this time around. So the steering wheels have had a lot of focus from the guys who are like super hardcore in the office and want all the settings off. But we've got quite a group in there as well who like to play it with the pad and like to have a few assists on. So we're really sort of trying to change it, make it a little bit easier to drive. Maybe it was a bit twitchy last time. So we're just fine-tuning some of those controls right now.
Okay. And so Bahrain, is that going to be in the schedule for the season? How does that work out with that?
I think if it's going to be in the true Formula 1 calendar, and if they do go ahead and race that, and there are suggestions that they will, then we'll include that. We've got the track running. That isn't a huge problem for us. So we're always kind of on the cusp. Are they going to go with it? Are they not going to go with it? So they make the decision and it happens, then I don't see why we can't include that as well.
Okay. I saw some of the best weather effects I ever saw in Formula 1 2010. Is that being carried over? Are there any improvements? I mean, it's hard to improve on something.
Yeah, and there were improvements. And it's an area that we were obviously very, very proud of last time round. But this time we've got dynamic clouds, so they move in. And we also changed some of the numbers as well. I think last time sometimes the track wetness values didn't necessarily tie into the tyre compounds you've got on. So if you're on the wrong compound now, it really is much more sort of twitchy stuff, and you're starting to feel the car sort of step out at the back. So that's been another key area of focus, even though it's one of the really strong points of F1 2010.
So the PC version came out on Steam, and it also incorporated Windows Live, which I've had nothing but trouble with. So 2 questions for you. Number 1, why is Windows Live part of 2010, and is it going to be in 2011? I guess the 3rd question, and do you know why I'm having terrible problems with it?
I don't know the answer to the 3rd question, but yes, we had it in 2010. We do have it in 2011. That is a publishing decision. It's not something that we really control in terms of development, but we are obviously looking to make that as decent an experience as possible, because we like some of the advantages it gives you. That will be in 11, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so 2010 was a great game. Honestly, it was when the patch came out that it went to that great game level for me. With 2011, you had a nice big head start going into it. Do you foresee needing patches to kind of cure some things? Do you think the game's just going to be ready day one?
I think we're already, the way that we're tracking against the game, we're ahead of where we were last year. Last year we were really quite ambitious in terms of game scope, whereas this year we're much more focused on a tighter feature set, and also we've got the base layer, so we can just polish it right up. But I mean, I think most games nowadays, you know, just from you're going to have 100 guys working on it in the studio, then all of a sudden day one you're going to get 500,000, 700,000 people playing the game. So we need to be ready to launch a patch if there are some unforeseen issues.
Now let's talk about some other games. Gran Turismo came out recently for the PS3. Have you guys played it much? What do you think of that effort?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've definitely played it. We've always played those kind of rival games, and I've always loved the Gran Turismo series anyway. So we're looking forward to that. It's 5 or 6 years of development. I was looking forward to seeing what they've achieved. They've done some amazing things, especially in force feedback, that I think gives us a lead on what we'd like to do, certainly for our series of games. They're really good there. Maybe I think, I mean, I'm always going to be the one that's going to get in trouble for being critical of other games. I seem to have a history of that at the moment, but there's some things that we didn't like in it that we're hoping not to replicate in ours. They have a slightly different style as to how they want their games to work. But yes, we do absolutely look at all the rival titles. I think it would be foolish of us just to say, stick our heads in the sand and say we're just doing it our own way. We've got to look at what they're doing. Sometimes you see a real gem of an idea, or things that you really loved in it, or what people liked in those titles, and you want to bring it over to yours. So,
sure,
yes.
They all have something different to offer. What about other kind of gaming? I mean, are you guys all driving games? You guys do some shooters? What other kind of gaming do you for fun?
It's mainly just been driving games at the moment. We're obviously keen to find out some more about Forza 4, releasing around a similar time to us. Dirt 3 has obviously just come out from Codemasters Racing Studio, so we spend a lot of time looking at that and seeing what they've done, and you know, there's a lot of sort of cross tech that goes on inside Codemasters. So obviously we gave them a head start with the weather system. They've given us a head start with split screen. So mainly just racing games for me.
How about you?
Same here. I don't really have any other time for anything else in my life other than playing these racing games and finishing this title off at the moment. But generally I play a wide variety of things, and sim-based stuff, or some shooters at home, the things that my friends want to play, and it's easy to just jump online after getting back at late night from work. I've got quite a variety, yeah.
What about any of the more hardcore sims, like an iRacing? You guys try that out much?
Yeah, I mean, we make it, you know, part of our routine to look at and analyse all games that come out. So you know, rFactor, iRacing, they're all games that we get up in the studio, and we try and, you know, download the latest mods and see what the community are doing and how they're reacting and how the different physics models, maybe we've got them side by side against our game. We do that quite a lot. I mean, almost on a sort of weekly basis, we're analysing other features, and not just tied to racing games either. There might be a great idea that's in an action game or a shooter that you know, just with a slight slant on it, could work really well in a racing game.
Absolutely. You guys talked about different objectives, adaptive objectives in the game, both in single player and multiplayer. How is that going to work out?
Well, one of the things that we found was really well received last year was the objectives that you have in the single player game. Whereas most racing games are about finishing first or finishing in the top 3, this was about that kind of Formula 1 life where maybe you're starting in a mid-ranking or one of the lower teams, a smaller budget behind you, and you're happy to just finish in the points or finish 15th. And that was really well received in the last title. So we've carried that through to multiplayer, because what we want is, even if you've got a mixture of players in the lobby, a couple of really hardcore guys that have maybe got the best cars, and you've got some newbies in there, we don't want those guys to feel threatened and think, oh, we've got no chance of winning now, when it's not about that. So each of the drivers are distributed in objectives. So if you and I are in there and we'd like to think ourselves as the best drivers, we're kind of asked to finish first and second, or if Andy Gray, for example, our PR guy, comes in there as well, and he's expected to finish last. But it's a real success for him to do that. Do you see what I mean? So
sure, it's the same accomplishment as you or I winning the race for Andy to just
absolutely, yeah.
maybe get top 10.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much for coming down to the studios, taking the time to talk to us about 2011, and make a little fun of Andy Gray. And I think now we're all going to do a little bit of driving, a little head-to-head racing. So,
Excellent.
thank you both.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations again.
Cheers.
Tamiya's extensive lineup of radio-controlled vehicles provides hobbyists with the joy of running exact replicas of their favorite car, tank, or off-road vehicle. Another attraction of these vehicles is their use of high-grade materials, such as nylon resin, carbon fiber, and polycarbonate. With precise mechanical systems, the maintenance and adjustment of the various components, as well as performance upgrading with optional parts, allows for truly competitive racing. For more information about Tamiya, visit us at www.tamiyausa.com.
Hope you guys enjoyed that interview with the lead developers. Sean tried to go in depth as much as he could and get all the information that you guys are wanting to hear out there. Unfortunately, we're not able to show you guys anything due to licensing agreements, but we are able to tell you as much as we can. So I'm going to pass it on over to the guys, and they're going to tell you all their thoughts about the upcoming title, Formula One 2011.
Sean Cole here with Tom Hackey and Darren Ganji. We're here to talk about F1 2011. We're not going to take a lot of time because, as Jessica mentioned, we just don't have a lot of footage. I mean, this is a real early first look.
Yeah.
So, starting with you, Tommy, what did you think of the game?
Well, input lag was something that really bugged me on the first game. The game was presented beautifully. The music, everything was phenomenal, but the input lag was there, and it's like, oh, don't let that hold me back, you know? And in this new game, I won't say it's completely gone yet, but it's so much smaller than it used to be. And they're continuing to work on it, you know, even now. So I know that that's something that they're heavily working on, and that makes me really, really happy about the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that'll hide force feedback. Good force feedback will be hidden by that lag because you won't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or good physics.
Yeah. So what about you, Darren? What'd you think?
I got to drive it in the rain. It was at the end of E3, and got to drive a couple laps at Monaco, which was just crazy. Actually, one of the videos we put out last year was me driving at Monaco in the rain. So I am familiar with that, which was cool because I am familiar with it. And the biggest difference I felt was cars seemed more alive, I guess you could say. It seemed like the physics engine was more robust, I guess you could say.
Sure.
I didn't drive it on dry, so I need to test it out a lot more. And unfortunately, I only got a few laps, but it just seemed better. And again, the input lag definitely seemed decreased. Mm-hmm. But overall, just the feel of the car, I felt more in control. Where the rubber meets the road thing.
Yeah.
Even though there was a lot of water on the road where I was driving. So,
you guys kind of both hit on different aspects that kind of combined are exactly where I feel. But it's that the game before felt a little canned in the effects to me. The graphics were top notch. I mean, some of the gameplay, everything about it. I mean, there's so many great aspects of the game. But again, it always came back to controller and how it felt when the rubber met the road. And it seems like they put most of their focus into that because it was enough for all of us to notice a pretty substantial difference right away.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Other little things, I mean, I know they're expanding on the live the life aspect of the game, and I think that's important for the type of game they're producing.
Yeah.
So all in all, I mean, I wish we had more time with it. I'd love to play it more and give you even more opinion.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to just getting more into some of the stuff that the guys were talking about when they were here. I'd like to thank them for coming here. That was really cool. Paul, Steven, and Andy all came here to hang out with us, and we just all hung out, talked sim racing, ordered some pizzas.
Yeah.
Thomas from Fanatic showed up. Dom Doohan was here. It was, just a sim racing party, and that was a lot of fun. But, some of the things like they mentioned, the enhanced sounds, that the sounds are better, and I noticed that briefly when I drove it. The paddock area that they changed, and just everything. I'm just really looking forward to just seeing how it all comes together.
Yeah, those little things come together and really make it a better experience for you.
And the multiplayer.
And that was something.
16 players plus AI.
Yeah,
So
full
you-
grids now,
Yeah,
Formula
it's
One
great.
grid.
Yeah.
Another thing they kind of snuck in there, I don't know if anyone caught it, but they stole some things from Dirt 3. So it looks like there's some fun play thrown into the multiplayer as well. So a game that's so straight-laced as a Formula One. I mean, this is the cars, these are the circuits.
Yes.
They're throwing a little bit more in there to make it fun. I also loved the rival mode. So just imagining running a series as teammates with one of you guys, but then wanting to be the superior driver by the end.
Yes.
I think that's a really cool new twist as well. So, anything else, you guys?
Nope.
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
So that's going to do it.
I wish we had more.
Yeah, me too. Again, you mentioned it. Thanks, guys, for coming and doing that in our studio. Andy Gray, you didn't see him on camera. He's been on the show before. Thank him as well. Kind of butted the joke for the interview there. So, I'm Sean Cole. For Tom Hackey, Darren Ganji, we're out of here.
That's going to wrap up our look at F1 2011 by Codemasters at E3 this year. I'd like to give a big thanks out to the guys, Paul Gill, Stephen Hood, and Andy Gray, of course, for being ever so kind and coming down to the studio and giving us an interview, and also letting us do an interview at their booth a couple days after Sean's interview here in the studio. I wasn't here that day, but I did get to run into them over at E3. And here's a little picture to show you guys our little gathering. They're always so kind and generous to us and giving us all the information, actually, for you guys out there, the viewers. So we hope that you guys enjoy what we put together and the first look at F1 2011. That's going to wrap things up. Make sure you visit our website, InsideSimRacing.tv. We have a page dedicated to this title, of course. So that's going to wrap things up. Checker flag is out, and so am I. Promotional consideration provided by iRacing.com, the ultimate place to race online. The world's finest model manufacturer and leader in RC cars, trucks, and tanks. Go to TamiyaUSA.com.
Do you guys know what's going on there? Is that something that's going to be in 2011? And why is Windows Live even part of my game?
I don't remember who's got the outside card.
It's your turn.
Should we do that one again then?